The three biggest Christian denominations in the world are Catholicism, Protestantism, and Eastern Orthodox Christianity. Eastern Orthodox Christianity was the dominant Christian denomination in my family, which was never a practicing Christian family. Catholicism and Protestantism were the dominant Christian denominations in the country where I was born and raised. However, Christianity has been in decline in that country since the 1960s. There were no good opportunities for me to learn about Christianity. This was before the rise of the internet. Churches were the most boring places to be. There were some churches around, but in general, nobody seemed to attend them. They looked like enlarged coffins. They were lifeless. Nothing interesting seemed to happen inside. The only practicing Christians seemed to be in the government, where they enforced their beliefs on others, such as by closing stores on Sunday. Even on TV, whenever anything biblical was shown, it was boring, depressing, and confusing. No Christian seemed to be able to make sense out of anything theological. Yet, the general rule is that anything theological that does not belong to one's church is considered satanic. Other religions are in particular satanic, according to them. Yet none could explain who Satan was. In mainstream Christianity, Satan is considered a fallen angel who rebelled against God. 1/3 of the angels joined into rebellion. All of them were banned from heaven and are now demons. When Satan was cast out of heaven, his name changed from Lucifer to Satan, and his mission was to replace God and lead people away from him. So he tempted Hava in the Garden of Eden to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which was forbidden. Then Satan did nothing significant for many thousands of years until the book of Job. He did not appear to be part of the fallen angels before the book of Job. Then he once again did not do anything significant for a few centuries. When Yahushua began his ministry, Satan somehow emerged as the archenemy of God. The story of Satan in mainstream Christianity often seems to stop with the Gospels. They fail to mention that the New Covenant mentions that he will create a one-world government, for example. Why do you think that is? If we examine these beliefs embraced by the overwhelming majority of Christian denominations, we will quickly notice that none of them are true. There is no Lucifer in the Bible. The snake in the Garden of Eden is identified in the book of Enoch as another watcher, not Satan. Nowhere in the story of the Garden of Eden is the snake linked to Satan. The Christian author Tertullian linked the cherub in Ezekiel chapter 28 with Satan, even though the prophet Ezekiel himself makes no such connection. Christians have blindly embraced this belief ever since. The Bible does not state that 1/3 of the angels fell from heaven. The Bible never states that fallen angels are demons. If you are a Christian, I urge you to examine your denomination's claims. Just examine their claims about Satan and you will most likely find an explosion of nonsense that they fail to back up with evidence. They've made Satan almost as big as God, and that alone should be enough to convince you of their falsehood. They want you to believe they are the only ones who have figured out Christian theology and that, if you do not follow them, you will face grave consequences, such as going straight to hell after death. They use Satan as their ally, to scare people into submission. Yet they have failed to know their enemy. Ancient Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu stated, start quote, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle." End quote. He is right. It is no surprise that Catholicism, Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and Protestantism have failed to combat Satan and the other fallen angels. The English word apostasy comes from the Greek apostasia. The Apostle Paul uses this word in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3 to warn about the decline of spirituality in the end times. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, he uses the same word to prophesy that some who leave their faith will instead embrace occultism, which is taught by demons and fallen angels. All mainstream Christian denominations are orthodox, as are Talmudism and Islam. Both orthodoxy and occultism are anti-intellectual. They rely on theatrics, fear, blind faith, and so on. It is time to do away with that. Orthodox theologies do not evolve. They are stuck in the time period of their creation because that was when their theologians defined what is correct for their followers to believe. Robots were invented about 20 centuries after the Apostle John mentioned them in Revelation chapter 13 verse 15. There is no point in using the same terminology that the Apostle John used to describe a robot. Science has evolved and is evolving. That allows us to better understand what the ancients were discussing. It is like with clothes in case of children. The older a child is, the more months it takes in general for the child to outgrow their clothes. Thus, new clothes need to be bought. The Orthodox are permanently stuck in their infant clothes. If you need software or hardware to be created that does not already exist, you can hire a company to create it for you. You could alternatively hire a freelancer or independent contractor, but the more complicated the software or hardware is, the more likely you will need to hire a company. So to understand creation better, which is both software and hardware, it would be a good idea to think of it as a company. When the Bible was written, companies did not exist. Joint stock companies originated in the 16th and 17th centuries, and that began the birth of modern companies. God the Father is the CEO of creation. Every properly functioning organization has a hierarchy. The best-run organizations are minarchies. They have only rules that are absolutely necessary, and force is only exercised when absolutely necessary. A skilled CEO knows who to trust and how to delegate authority. God has all kinds of employees, like Archangel Michael, who is the military commander of heaven. Angels serve as God's messengers or servants carrying out His will. They are not the only beings who are superior to humans, but humans of this world are the lowest of all beings who are created in the image of God. Since we are not living in heaven, we cannot be part of this company. We have to immigrate to heaven first before we can join this company. When you become spiritual, you automatically apply for citizenship in heaven, specifically in the next world where New Jerusalem will be the capital and therefore its pinnacle. Heaven is the abode of the spiritually mature. As in every company, some employees fail to do their job. The Old Covenant introduces us to a class of angels who are referred to as sons of Elohim and watchers. They were dispatched to the earth to watch and guard over humans. Supervisor is a good title for this job. In Enoch chapter 6 verse 1 to 6, some watchers conspired together to marry human women, which was not allowed. They became fallen angels. The Bible never mentions that anyone from any other class of angels or heavenly beings has fallen. Enoch chapter 7 verse 1 states that they married human women, had children with them and taught them occultism. Their offspring are called the Nephilim. We have only one body, but watchers have a Matryoshka avatar that consists at least out of two bodies. Genesis chapter 2 verse 24 states that a man will leave his father and his mother and will join his wife, and they will be one flesh. By choosing to devolve themselves to the level of humans, those watchers equalized themselves with inferior creatures. They became one with humans, but they did temporarily retain their superior body. This type of paraphilia can be called anthropophilia in case of the watchers because anthropos means human in Greek and is used in words like anthropology, anthropogenesis, anthropogeny, and so on. It falls within the same category as pedophilia and zoophilia, which can be called elesonophilia because eleson means inferior in Greek. It is the same idea. For example, a pedophile needs to leech off from the innocence of children. An anthropophile is superior to humans and needs to leech off from the innocence of humans. It is innocent parasitism. A pedophile is a loser among adults and is therefore not taken seriously by them. They can only fool children into thinking that they are not losers. They like to act like they are children themselves on the inside. That becomes their public personality, but the private personality remains hidden and goes to war with adulthood. They need to appear as children because they need that cloak of innocence to hide their disgustingness. They try to convince others that childhood is better than adulthood. Inferior supremacy. Aside from the type of victims, there is no difference between any form of elesonophilia. Since watchers live in heaven, it might look illogical for any of them to violate the nomos. It is not like on the earth, which is not run by God, and criminals choose to believe in atheism for that reason. Thus, they have hope that they will get away with their claims for as long as they are not caught by the authorities. Watchers know that they will not get away with any crime and yet they commit the crime of anthropophilia. If you have met any elesonophile like I have, you will not be surprised by that because they practice the inversion of logic. In general, nothing they do makes sense. Since they are not accepted by their own peers, they try to create their own world where they are accepted by the inferiors they lost so much after. In this world, they set themselves up as the messiah of the inferiors who will save them from the superiors. For example, if a pedophile has his own land and enough money, he will create a playground on his land. That will be his safe space where he will pretend to rescue children from maturity. Anthropophilic watchers come to the earth and try to create the counterfeit New Jerusalem, which I would call New Babylon, but Revelation chapter 17 verse 5 calls it mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. Here they pretend to be gods who will save the masses from maturity, such as being workers. To accomplish that, they establish nanny-states, but their goal is to establish a worldwide nanny-state. They are trying to create a playground out of this world for their supporters, which includes mainly leftists. For example, if you do not work, they reward you by punishing workers with fines to give you money. They call the fines income taxation. It is financial parasitism. They punish winners and reward losers because they are losers. They are paraphiles, so they and their supporters support paraphilia and giving people special rights based on what they do in their bedroom. Whoever supports paraphilia supports sexual promiscuity. They support feticide. If you are a woman and get pregnant because you were irresponsible by having sex outside of marriage, then you can not only let the doctor commit feticide on your fetus, but the nanny state will find others to pay the doctor so that you do not have to do so yourself. The nanny state is all about encouraging and rewarding immaturity and discouraging and punishing maturity. All of the mature are targeted by elesonophiles. They cannot afford any opposition because the truth is not on their side. They are guilty and there is evidence for that, so they must destroy all threats. For example, when a pedophile is hired by a daycare center, he cannot afford anyone there to find out that he is a pedophile. During job interviews, he will of course portray himself as kind and loving children. Once hired, he will attack his mature colleagues in the most cowardly ways, such as by making himself look as their victim. When a person has the habit of doing something evil, that person will always falsely accuse others of doing just that. For example, liars always accuse truth speakers of lying. Scammers always accuse the trustworthy of scamming. The intolerant always accuse the tolerant of being intolerant, and so on. They are adversaries of good and seek to destroy everyone and everything that is good. In Hebrew, the word Satan means to oppose or to act as an adversary. In its original sense, it refers to an accuser or opponent, often in a legal or moral context. The Book of Enoch mentions Satans without explaining who they are, but since the story of the Book of Enoch takes place in the previous world, none of them can be the Satan of the New Covenant. The previous world was destroyed by God with the flood, and the fallen angels at the time were imprisoned. Take 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 19 to 20 as an example of that. In this world, there are once again anthropophiliac watchers. The story of the book of Job takes place after the flood. Job chapter 2 verse 1 states, "On the day when Elohim's son came to present themselves before Yahweh, the Satan came also among them to present himself before Yahweh." The New Covenant picks up one Satan among the watchers and names him according to his new job title. I believe it is the same one from the book of Job. There is no single powerful archenemy of God. Instead, just like humans sin, so are the watchers who sin. It is a natural phenomenon. It is not like one being decided to challenge God, did so successfully, and now we are all in trouble. Satan and the other fallen angels are the biggest cowards known to mankind. They should serve as embodiments of heaven to whom we should look up to. However, they look at us with desire instead. It is disgusting beyond words. Talking about the future event, Revelation chapter 12 verse 7 to 9 states, start quote, "There was war in the sky. Michael and his angels made war on the dragon. The dragon and his angels made war. They did not prevail. No place was found for them any more in heaven. The great dragon was thrown down, the old serpent, he who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him." End quote. Wherever there are beings who are in some way inferior in whatever way to other beings, the latter will always be attracted to abuse the former whenever they fail to deal with their own shortcomings. That creates a new job, which is that of a Satan. This job is not on God's payroll. It is a job that relies on parasitism instead. The difference between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of a Satan is described well in John chapter 10 verse 10, where Yahshua states, start quote, "The thief only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I came that they may have life, and may have it abundantly." End quote. The spiritual produce and give. The occult leech off from what they can steal. Every kingdom of a Satan is an organization that exists in darkness and relies on parasitism. Not all fallen angels are Satans. They have different roles just like there are different roles in an organization. They like to hide in darkness just like burglars do. Their motives are always hidden. They can never speak the truth for that reason. In John chapter 8 verse 44, Yahshua states that the devil, start quote, "was a murderer from the beginning, and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks on his own, for he is a liar, and the father of lies." End quote. Whatever fallen angels are allowed to do, they are allowed to do so for the benefit of free will, which relies on choice. If there is nothing to choose from, there is no choice. Before the establishment of the new covenant, fallen angels were kept on a leash by God. Once Yahshua showed up, Satan and the other fallen angels were allowed to start establishing their kingdom on the earth. They are therefore allowed to challenge the spiritual. If you are spiritual, demons are completely powerless against you, but fallen angels are still allowed to test you and even attack you to some degree. They especially can use your spiritual shortcomings against you. The less you sin, the less powerful they are against you. By being in full agreement with the Logos, you put on the full armor of God as mentioned in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 11. Therefore they have no other choice but to practice the inversion of logic. That is why they promote sinning to anarchy as freedom and human rights. If there is anything good about you, they will use it against you because in their playground, good is evil while evil is good. They accuse good doers of being allegedly strict, ignorant, intolerant, hateful, bigoted, and so on. Evil doing is supported by them in the name of tolerance, inclusivity, innocent fun, and so on. They want their followers to not only be as disgusting as they are, but to be prideful of it as well. Like demons, they always target the weakest first, starting with children in case of humans. In the US, for example, there is the occult holiday of Halloween in which children dress up to symbolically or literally resemble demons, fallen angels, or evil-doing humans. In the summer, there is another dress-up party, but it is mainly for adults. It is thrown in celebration of pride. For example, you will see men dressed up as women and women dressed up as men as these pride events take place across the world. They pretend to be something that they are not and claim that they are being themselves. They are authors of confusion. If you do not like cross-dressing or body mutilation for the purpose of looking like the opposite sex, then you are called a transphobe by them. If you do not like it that the government is giving people special rights for practicing the sexuality of the opposite sex, then you are called a homophobe. It makes as much sense as calling someone a vampirophobe for not liking it when the government gives people special rights for dressing up as vampires. If you fail at being a human just as fallen angels have failed at being watchers, you will need such special rights. You will claim that they are in fact human rights, but your love for humans will be shown by the actual human rights that you deny fellow humans, such as gun rights, freedom of speech, property rights, and so on. Your body is your property. If you have nothing useful to do with your property because you are a loser, you will support collective ownership and deny others the right to defend themselves. In that case, you will support property taxes, prostitution, body mutilation, feticide, and so on. Fallen angels love us as much as pedophiles love children. It is this fake love that they teach us for their pleasure. Pedophiles love human maturity as much as fallen angels love spiritual maturity. Notice how pedophiles mainly rape male children. Just think of Catholic priests who abuse children. Their victims are almost always boys. Creatures who are superior to us have no gender, but when they manifest as one of us, their gender is always male because manhood symbolizes godhood. God identifies himself in the Bible with male pronouns, for example. That is why manhood is attacked in this world. Just think of the magic term toxic masculinity that is used by leftists in the war on manhood. It is spiritual warfare. For a pedophile, scamming a child into rejecting his parents and choosing his abuser over them instead is the ultimate victory, especially if the parents will continue to be financially responsible for the child. They want the rejection to be done with pride and in celebration. That is how any form of elastinophilia works. James chapter 4 verse 6 says that God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. The next verse states, start quote, "Be subject therefore to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you." End quote. The word devil in this verse is translated from the Greek word diaboli, which is defined as a slanderer, the arch enemy of man's spiritual interest. Fallen angels flee from the spiritual just like pedophiles flee from adults. We are on our way to be reborn as creatures who are superior to humans. By being spiritual, we are succeeding to become what fallen angels have failed at being themselves. By being occult, we are equalizing ourselves to them, and they are in fact even equalizing themselves to demons, who are lower than humans. For example, Revelation chapter 16 verse 13 to 14 reveals an alliance between Satan and demons who he will put in charge of the upcoming world government. Fallen angels do not only sink to the level of the overworld, but also to the level of the underworld. The world is now under Satan's dominance religiously and will eventually be under his dominance politically as well. Neither Satan nor the other fallen angels are as mighty as they want us to believe. The devolutionism of humans is the source of their strength. When you read the Bible, you will notice that fallen angels are given very little attention, and that is logical. They are not worth our attention beyond knowing that they exist and what they are about. They cannot do more than what they are allowed to do by God. It is not them that we have to fear, but ourselves. Every person is his or her nemesis. Once you conquer yourself spiritually, no one else will be able to conquer you, not even superior beings.